Hey, welcome. This is Paul Kalemkiarian. We're at Wine Talks. This is an episode that you're going to really enjoy. Wine Talks is available on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. We are just honored and privileged. I'm going to say privileged to have JeanPaul Bignon here at the Wine of the Month Club because we're going to talk about some really amazing stuff and some amazing wines from Château Talbot. He is the propriétaire.
Oui. Propriétaire, yes.
and but excuse me, amazing history. So I want to start with this because you weren't always in the wine business. In fact, that came later in life. You
Absolutely.
You were. Well, tell me.
Well, I came really late in the wine business, except that actually I worked in the wine business late, but I came in the wine business pretty early because I married Nancy Cordier in 1985, and Nancy is a descendant of a very famous lignée, a very famous family of wholesalers of Bordeaux, and in addition, of course, chateau owners. And the Cordier have been owning many chateaux like Gruau-Larose, Château Talbot, Château Maynet, Château Laforêt-Péraguet, and also the Clos des Jacobins in Saint-Émilion. And therefore, they have been really much in the wine business since the middle of the 19th century.
Well, wait, how does somebody meet somebody like this? I mean, this seems like a pretty special relationship.
It was very... I am from Picardy. Picardy is really north of Normandy, which is a northwestern part of France, while, of course, Nancy was from the southwest, although her family, initially, her family came from the northeastern part of France, a region called Lorraine, and my father-in-law was very attached to his roots, and therefore he named his first daughter Lorraine from the region name, and then his second daughter Nancy, which is the capital city of Lorraine. So he had Lorraine and Nancy as his two daughters.
What a very nostalgic guy.
Absolutely. You're perfectly right. And when he died in 1993, unfortunately, Lorraine and Nancy inherited Château Talbot. And I married Nancy in 1985. And therefore, since that time, my life has been, of course, very much in the wine, but not working with the wine because actually I was a lawyer and I was working as a lawyer.
Now that's that part. You know, folks, what we usually do is we taste wine together, then we come upstairs and we shoot these podcasts. And I was fascinated by this part of the story. And it's not only because you did this and you came to New York, and we'll talk about that in a second. I was at the Tre Becchieri, which is the Italian show in Los Angeles. It tours the United States once a year, 5 locations. I interviewed 3 or 4 winemakers, maybe 5. Every one of them did not start in the wine business.
Oh, that's interesting.
2 of them were lawyers.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Excuse me. And 3 of them were pre-med.
Pre-med.
Want to be doctors.
Oh, my God.
And so I'm like, okay, but you have this family history in front of you. You didn't have that then, right? So they have these Castellos in front of them, ready for them to take on the work, and they want to do something. They want nothing to do with it, right? Yeah. And they became, of course, now. Why wouldn't you do that? So you studied law in France?
I studied law in France, and then I had the chance to study it as well in the U.S. And so I was lucky to go to New York University in New York City, and I took a Master of Law then in 1981. And then I took the New York bar, and I was sworn before the Supreme Court of the State of New York in 1982.
That's incredible.
That's
a great story. So you stayed in New York, you worked in New York for
absolutely.
Corporate law, I think you said.
Yes, exactly, absolutely. And then I went back to Paris for the same firm who had hired me in New York, and finally joined a French firm that my brother had set up in 1982, and I joined them in 1987 after I married my wife, and I spent 30 years there. And then when my sister-in-law, Lauren, died, unfortunately in 2011, I said to my wife, now I'm going to quit my firm, my law practice, and I'm going to help you taking care of Château Talbot, Château Sénéjac, and the rosé of Provence that we have in Provence called Domaine Saint-Andrieux. And I've started
Wow.
that about 5 or 6 years ago.
So we're at Bordeaux, the southwest, and the Provence, is
Provence,
the
southeast.
southeast, a little
And
bit.
Picardy,
And now
northwest.
Picardy, you're gonna your thing now. We know, and we talked about this before, but and this is a passion that I'm learning. This is my 30th year of tasting wines, probably 100,000 wines, but it's taken conversations such as this one and working with Thomas here. And I didn't introduce Thomas Coutier is here with us today from Duclos, and he's a tremendous asset to this company for his knowledge of Bordeaux and bringing things here. But that passion is coming from this need to understand wine and to feel wine and to taste wine. And we were talking about this experience of wine. And you had a whole career ahead of you after that.
I agree.
You drank wine, obviously. You're French, so that's
Yes.
part of the culture. But
ADN.
was there this expressive passion that you wanted to pull out of as part of Château Talbot, or you just decided to change? Or?
Well, you're right to say that we French people, we always have a special taste for wine, and it's too bad that nowadays, because of certain legislation in France, it's less difficult to speak about wines in France, but we are still very much involved with the wine. And therefore, since my grandparents have always been drinking Bordeaux, and when I met Nancy, I started to drink Saint-Julien wines. I really, of course, become in love with these wines. So when I think it was time for me to terminate my career as a lawyer, I was very happy to start a second career in traveling for Château Talbot all around the world, and coming in this country, the United States, have always been for me moving, because when I started to come in this country, I was 25. I started to work in New York, and then for 40 years I didn't come as much. And then all of a sudden, because of the wine business, I'm coming much more, traveling here.
Yeah.
And it's great because it reminds me when I was young, and meeting people in New York, here in Los Angeles is absolutely wonderful.
So you must have seen a change in New York.
For a long time, I was saying that New York hasn't changed. And finally, it's not true. New York has really changed. And it's changing even more nowadays because of these new buildings they are building very close to the Central Park. And it is really transformed. There is a lot of area which had been transformed, but the whole physiognomy of New York is really changing. Although there is still the spirit of New York, which we all love, and I hope it will stay like that forever.